but this is not professional.
Hanno voluto la prova del
So, good morning. Let's start. How are you? Fine. Did you study?
Yes,
A
but
bit.
I did not understand so many things
You
in
need
the second chapter.
some specific things to ask.
Yes, when I was learning about the action potential during cardiac cycle, there is something called like the plateau.
Yeah.
Plateau and this
Plateau is in a French word.
French word.
You know, some English, but the original is a word.
French
word.
Plateau. And there's a small time phrase that happens between the action potential.
But we didn't talk so much about the action potential yesterday. We will talk today a lot about action potential. Maybe you will understand your point. Anyway, yesterday, for example, we talked about this basic functional anatomy of the atrioventricular and semilunar valves that explain how they operate. We know they operate when they close, when they open, why they don't, for example, the atrioventricular valve don't go in the atrium, the leaflets don't go in the atrium during the contraction because there are okay. When they close, when there is a gradient in pressure. So at the beginning of the isovolumic contraction, the pressure starts to rise and close the valve. I would say one more thing about the atrioventricular valve closure. When we have the atrial systole, the valve is already open, okay? The atrial systole push a little bit of blood in the ventricle, making turbulence. This turbulence push up the leaflets, and the valve is in a semi-closure position, semi-closed. So when the ventricular systole begins, the valves are already in a semi-closure position. So they close suddenly, and no blood go in the atrium. So a function of the atrial systole is to put the valves in a semi-closure position. And when there is an heart failure, another reason that can be a problem is if we don't have the atrial system, like in fibrillation of the atrium, is because the valve don't go in the closed position. So we have a weak ventricle that cannot pump blood in the aorta in an efficient way. And moreover, the valve is not in a semi-closure position, and the blood go in the atrium instead to go in the aorta. And this is a problem for a patient with heart failure. Big problem. There are many people, let's say 2, 3, even more, the female people, healthy female people that have the so-called atrioventricular, in Italian is prolasso, I guess in English is prolax. then the valve doesn't close properly. But one of the leaflets is too abundant and go in the atom. And so you hear a murmur during the cardiac cycle. And this is because a little bit of blood go in the atom. Is this a diastolic or systolic murmur? It's diastolic or systolic, because during the ventricular system, the blood go in the atom. Little bit. This is called prolasso della mitrale, for example. And it's very often it's common. Okay. Drawing correct temporal relationship, the pressure, volume, heart sound, ECG. We just mentioned it, but we will talk a lot about the ECG in the cardiac cycle. Identify the intervals of isovolumic contraction. Now it's clear for you what is isovolumic contraction. It's the first phase of the cardiac cycle when the volume doesn't change but the pressure increases. Rapid ejection, reduced ejection, and so on. You know everything about that. Know the various phases of ventricular system and ventricular diastole. Contrast the relationship between the pressure and the flowing into and out of the left and right ventricle during each phase of the cardiac cycle. You know when the flow go in, when the go out. We have seen the shape of the aortic flow, the flow that's zero during diastole, increase the velocity, and then decrease the velocity, and there is a little big flow in the moment of the closure of the valve, the semilunar valve. Do you remember? We have solved. We have seen. Okay. Let's go forward. Maybe I would say the cardiac the cardiovascular organization of the system and blah blah blah. If you need, I can stop in something. If you see, oh, can you explain again this graphic? I can. I know it, but I can check directly the last slide. But I'm just for you doing this. So please give a look to the display and see if there is something that you need to be explained. Let's read another of this. Understand now the way left side and right sides have had different day timing. Physiological cardiac effects, heart sound. We have seen the heart sound. Okay. We have seen that the left and the side events have a little bit of difference due to mainly to what?
Respiration.
Respiration, because during the respiration change the blood flow that go back to the left and the right. During inspiration, we increase the blood that go to the right atrium. We will see better why. And during expiration, more blood go to the left sides. Okay. And these are the murmurs that we have seen where systolic, diastolic, stenosis, insufficiency. Okay. This is with all the kind of the main types of heart sounds: systolic, diastolic, and continuous. When the, for example, the patent ducts. Differentiate between cardiac output, stroke volume, and stroke work. Now it's not what is cardiac output. What is cardiac output?
Is the blood.
The blood, no blood.
Is the blood that flow out in a minute.
1 minute. The unit of time, usually we use 1 minute. How much is the cardiac output of an healthy, beautiful guy? The normal,
70.
no, the cardiac output.
5 liters.
70 milliliter is the stroke volume. That is 1 beat. During 1 minute, you have 70 beat. How much is the cardiac output? 5 what? Potatoes. Say potatoes or potatoes? It's a both. 5 liters. 70 milliliters for 70 beats is 4,900 milliliters, more or less 5 liters. Okay? And how much is the maximum of an healthy person that exercises the cardiac output? How much?
How much?
Is the cardiac output in a person that is exercising?
Maximum 35 liters.
In normal people, around 25 liters, but we can have also extraordinary people that can reach to the athletes. The Olympic athletes can go also to 34, 45 liters. And we will see in this. And what is Maria Luisa, the stroke work?
Is the work of the heart during
The work
of the heart
of the heart
during the cardiac cycle.
during cardiac cycle to move
The blood
from the ventricle into
the tissue.
the circulation in the aorta for the left ventricle. And how we calculate the cardiac work? The area of the
Of the cycle.
which rectangle? Which rectangle? The area
The one created with the graph of the cardiac cycle.
is called in this way EP loop. Pressure volume loop. And we multiply volume for pressure. Which volume? Stroke volume. Which pressure? The pressure during the period in which the blood will go out. So systolic, systolic pressure. This is the so-called potential work. Then we should add a little bit of Giovanni, which other type of work we should add to our calculation. We have pressure volume plus
1/2.
1/2 is the very famous formula.
1/2 and
Did you have like lesson of
v square.
physics?
Yes, yes. 1/2 m square.
And velocity square. It's the kinetic component. No, stroke volume, the volume pumped by each beat, 70 milliliter. 70 milliliter, how much is it? How much is this? How much is this?
25.
Hmm?
25 milliliters.
500.
100.
That's a liter, but it's reaching back.
70 milliliter, 1 beat. 2 beat, please drink. Okay. And with this end diastolic volume, how much is the end diastolic volume?
The end diastolic.
End diastolic volume, diastolic volume.
130.
130. No blood goes back to the veins. We have two beats and 1/2 to do it, and we die. We will close the veins. The ventricle, there is the diastole, there is the amount of 2 beats, more or less. Right. Ejection fraction, we can calculate the ejection fraction because if I drink, this is the diastolic volume. Can I drink? This is the diastolic volume. 70 milliliters in my stomach, and this is the what's called this the systolic residual volume. Systolic residual volume. Residual. So if I know the residual volume and the systolic volume, and I know and the diastolic volume and diastolic volume minus and the systolic volume, I know the stroke volume, that is 70 milliliter. And I know the stroke volume, I know the diastolic volume. The ratio is the ejection fraction. The ratio expressed in percent. The minute volume or cardiac output, stroke volume multiplied for heart rate. Cardiac index is the ratio between cardiac output and our body surface. The first square meter of body surface. We have seen the determinants of cardiac output are the contractility. If increase the contractility, increase the cardiac output, if increase the preload, increase the stroke volume. If increase the heart rate, increase the cardiac output, but we should be aware that if it's increased too much and the stroke volume started to decrease, we cannot have a further increase of cardiac output. And we have defined where this contractility to the intrinsic property can change very quickly. And I've seen this curve. If I see one of these curves, is called the Starling curve or systolic function. If I see a family of curves, they are called the Sarnoff curve, because Sarnoff said, oh, I can study different contractility. This is one contractility. This is a lower contractility. This is an even lower contractility. And here in the axis we have the what is left the left ventricular and the systolic pressure. Some parameter of filling in the atrial pressure, systolic ventricular pressure, but in diastole. And in the end we have some function of systems of cardiac output. Again, the Sarnoff family of curves with different contractility. We have seen that norepinephrine can increase rapidly the contractility, and when we exercise, we have more catecholamines in circulation, and the blood circulate faster, and the heart pumps more energetically. When we change the preload, we are using the heterometric regulation. When we change the level of catecholamines, we are using the homeometric regulation. We don't need a change in preload to have change in force of contraction. So we can change the force of contraction, changing the preload, or we can change the force of contraction, changing the stimulation with the catecholamine or drugs. We have seen that after load of pulse, the cardiac, the stroke work, but the cardiac output can be back in a few beats because of the residual, increase the residual systolic volume and increase the volume. So we use the heterometric regulation to bring back the stroke work and so the cardiac output until in this range of pressure. If the pressure is too high, we can have a reduction of cardiac output. Because the pressure is the afterload that we should win to have a stroke work. That's in the contractility, how they change the cardiac output, and then we have seen also in which of this sequence of events the stimulation of beta-1 receptor acts. And we have at the end that this pump is more efficient, and that the calcium channel are more akin to be open. This is the expression that electrophysiologists use to the channel after beta-adrenergic stimulation is more akin to be open. Be open spontaneously, easily. easily. No? So when an action potential arrive, this channel open, we will see again this channel in the electrophysiological stuff. Calcium go in, induce the calcium release from sarcoplasm, and we have the calcium signal to the sarcoma to have the contraction. Then the calcium should be removed by this pump, Cerca, the pump the calcium in the sarcoplasmatic reticulum, and by this exchanger that put outside the calcium in exchange of sodium. The stimulation with beta agonist like adrenaline, noradrenaline, isoproterenol is a drug that do similar thing. We have this channel that are more akin to be open, so more calcium enter, more calcium is released by here, more stronger is the contraction. Then the calcium is quickly removed, sarcoplasmic, so the calcium is disposal for the next beat. And more calcium is removed from here, and the heart relax very quickly. Lusotropic effect. So we have inotropics, increase in contractility, and lusotropic effect. And this is described here. We have seen that acetylcholine can do the opposite. This is the sequence of phosphorylation of channel and phosphorylation of phospholambda, which results in the calcium channel to be more keen to be open, and Cerca to works more efficiently, more quickly to pump the calcium in the sarcoplasmic reticulum. This is beta-2 receptor that have both effects. This is the PV loop when we have seen the effect of preload, the effect of afterload, and the effect of the increasing contractility. This is the cardiac work, stroke work. This area, pressure multiplied volume, mean systolic pressure for stroke volume plus the kinetic energy. And we have seen this curve to say again, if the heart rate increase, the stroke volume can decrease, and you don't have so much increase in cardiac output. Okay, if I use a pacemaker to stimulate the heart and increase the heart rate, I seek the cardiac output to increase it until this value, but then start to decrease after 108 beat. Limite critico superiore di Wenckebach limit. Okay. Instead, during exercise, for example, we can have an increase in contractility, more blood that go back to the atrium because of the muscle contraction, because of the inspiration. So the stroke volume, the preload is maintained, the stroke volume is maintained, and we can reach even higher cardiac output. And we can follow the bus that we are missing. Otherwise, we miss the bus. We can exercise. But we were here yesterday. We should say that we have a reserve. Our cardiac output can increase because we can increase the factors that are in play, stroke volume and heart rate. Banal concept. We already said this. I'm telling you this in different words with a different graph. If you like this, I don't like very much this graph, but this is ventricular volume, and this is cardiac heart rate. So this can make a graphic of the cardiac reserve. And the volume usually go from 130 to 80, but we have the possibility to increase the volume until 160. This is, let's say, the maximum volume or normal maximum volume of feeling when we exercise. If we are an Olympionic player, we can reach a feeling of 160. In this moment, we have an increasing contractility. From 160, we can put out 140, and the residual blood is 20 milliliter. It's like I feel this, and I drink more of this. And this is the limit of variation of heart rate. So we have this number, and the systolic volume usually is 135 mil, and the systolic volume is 65. So the stroke volume is 70 milliliter. Heart rate normally is 70 beats. So normal cardiac output is about 5 liters per minute, but we can go to maximum diastolic volume, maximum, and so we have a reserve of 50-30 milliliters more that can we add to the diastolic volume. We can fill the heart with more volume. How much of the usual volume? How much? 30 milliliter more. So this is our reserve. Maximum systolic volume. Usually when we contract in our heart, the residual volume is 55, 60 milliliter, but we can go to 20 milliliter. Never we go to empty volume. We don't have a 100% of ejection fraction. Okay. It can occur in some extreme situation, but will be problem because there are some receptor in the cardiac system that will lead to slowing down of the heart rate, just an attempt of the heart to say, oh, rest that I need to feel. And so the people can faint because it cannot pump and the heart is slowing down. Anyway, physiologically, during exercise, the maximum, let's say the minimal systolic residual volume is 20. The maximum heart rate is 180 to 200 beats. So if Giovanni exercises, he can have 25 liters per minute. that if that I'm an Olympionic player, if I exercise, I can go to 35 liters per minute. This is the reserve of cardiac. There were now, before to go further, we can have a look to this file that you see for the first time now. Where is Physyology? You should be able to.
Ora è acceso.
Why you don't see what I see here?
Un secondo. Ok, però si vede solo lì. Perché è come se continuasse lo schermo da quel lato.
Ma se io chiudo questo?
No, è lì il mouse. Cioè bisogna portarlo da destra verso sinistra e torna lì.
Ma se io chiudo questo adesso così, non lo vedo? No.
E torna verso lì. Ok, ora
Vabbè, so poi come fare ad andare giù?
con la rondella, con la rotella. Non va? Allora.
What happens at the end of ventricular isovolumic relaxation? Wait. One question for each of you. Giovanni?
The aortic valve opens. Relaxation.
Isovolumic relaxation.
The mitral valve opens.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Be careful when this mistake that Giovanni made is a typical mistake of the student that don't read carefully the question. You should read the question, each word carefully, because the quiz, this type of question tricky.
But in the isovolumetric relaxation, why we don't have the aortic valve closed?
And for
Was closed. Don't close in this moment. What happens? What happens? The aortic valve was already closed. At the end, you made the same mistake of Joanne. What happens at the end of ventricular isovolumic relaxation?
from I thought at the end the ventricular pressure falls back again to the diastolic pressure. And in this case, I thought the aortic valve has closed completely.
The aortic valve is closed.
It's closed already.
But the question is, what happens at the end of ventricular isovolumic relaxation? At the end of isovolumic relaxation, we see that the mitral valve opens. In that moment, that is the sign that the isovolumic relaxation is finished. Okay, now we have the question for Silvio. If I can move this.
Praticamente deve portare il mouse verso destra prima, così, e poi ecco ora c'è il mouse là.
E quindi
E quindi bisogna vederlo da lì.
which events is associated with the first heart sound?
The closing of atrioventricular valves.
The closing of atrioventricular valves. Do you agree, all of you? When the valves, atrioventricular valves close, yeah, the first sound. Don't.
Which phase of the cardiac cycle follows immediately after the beginning of the QRS wave?
We just mentioned what is wireless wave. Do you remember what is wireless wave?
Yes, is the electrical.
This complex in the electrocardiogram that represent what?
The contraction.
No, the contraction. The contraction is a mechanical stuff. This is electric. The polarization of the ventricular wall. So the start of the pump is an electric, the mechanical pump. With the polarizer we will learn today, and then after the polarizer of the input, we have the inputs that travel in the wall, and the wall contracts. The first event.
The contraction. Of the ventricle.
The QRS, the first event in the ventricle, the electrical, which is immediately before. Isovolumic contraction. And we have seen in the figure that we have the electrocardiograph, the QRS is just very close to the systolic isovolumic contraction. Should I show you again? You have the curve with the pressure, but they don't have the electrocardiogram here.
No, sovrapposto no.
Anyway, I will show you again. Well, let's go. next question is for Christina. Mm. 6-year-old Christina, read carefully.
6 years old woman has a resting heart rate of 70 beats per minute, arterial pressure of 130/85 millimeters mercury.
130, what is? This is stop,
Systolic.
the maximum pressure. And 85,
Systolic.
the daily diastolic pressure.
And normal body temperature. Use the pressure volume diagram of the head left ventricle below. Answer question 1.
The question is, what is?
The cardiac output in millimeters per minute is
You have some option. Do you need the option, or you can already do the calculation? I want to show you one thing. This is not well. This graph. The graph is not very good because this is
Isovolumetric relaxation.
isovolumic relaxation. And they made to start the feeling in this way, but we have learned that the feeling started this way. While the pressure is reducing, the heart is feeling. The pressure in the ventricle is really, it's not a schematic. This is better, you see. You have this round, and the opening of the valve is here. Okay, just what is the cardiac output?
So the cardiac output is heartbeats multiplied stroke volume. So the stroke volume is then the diastolic volume and the systolic volume. So
Minus residual systolic volume.
So
Like somebody called just systolic volume, but I don't like it. It's a residual systolic volume. So how much is the stroke volume? You have the option here. It's 2 liters, 3 liters, 4 liters, 6 liters, or 7 liters. You say the end diastolic volume. You see there. How much is the end diastolic volume? And the diastolic volume, the maximum volume of the ventricle in the cardiac cycle.
The maximum.
100.
No,
100, okay.
and diastolic volume is 150 in this case. And the systolic volume, the residual systolic volume. So the stroke volume is 100 milliliters multiplied with 7,000 milliliters. 7 litri. Okay. Now we have Isabella. Keeping in mind the PV loop, you should answer when does the first heart sound occur in the ventricular pressure volume relationship? When does the first heart sound occur in the ventricular pressure volume relationship? Between point A and B, at point B, between point B and point C, between point C and point D, between point D and point A? When?
Between point A and point B.
When? Which moment does the first sound occur in the ventricular pressure volume relationship? It's very similar to the question.
The ventricular valves closed, so we are between the point B and point C.
Which moment? This moment is close. We know who is the answer. Joanne?
Point B.
At point B. That moment. This is a volumetric contraction. At point B. And the question was when does the second heart sound occur at the ventricular pressure volume relationship? The answer was
D.
At point D. Now is the question for Anna Maria. When does the fourth heart sound occur in the ventricular portion volume relationship? At point B, between point A and point B, between point B and point C, the heart sound. The fourth heart sound is the atrial contraction.
Between the point D and point I.
Between?
Point D and point I.
Point B, point A is there is all the valves are already closed. There's a volumetric relaxation. Here we have the closure diastolic of a semilunar valve in protodiastole, or beginning of diastole. This is the first phase of diastole relaxation. At the end, we have the opening of, in this moment, at the opening of the mitral valve. We have the feeling, rapid feeling, slow feeling. Then we have, in this moment, we have
Diastasi.
the atrial contraction. And so here we have the fourth sound. So the answer is between A and B, closer to B, but it is between A and B. And now the question for Christopher. Christopher?
What What is ejection fraction?
Ventricular ejection fraction. We know the end diastolic volume. We know the end systolic volume, the residual systolic volume. So we know the stroke volume. So we have everything to calculate the ejection fraction. How much is the end diastolic volume? Do you remember, or you need to see the PV loop? How much is the end diastolic volume?
150.
150. How much is the end systolic volume, or the residual volume?
50.
The minimal volume?
50.
50.
Yeah.
How much is the stroke volume?
100.
100.
Yeah.
If the stroke volume is 100, how much is the ejection fraction? We need to know stroke volume and whatever.
And volume?
And then the diastolic volume. And the diastolic volume. So 100 divided
150.
150. We have
0.60.
0.67 0,67. In Italian is virgola, in English point. So if it's 0,67,
So it's supposed to be 67%.
67%. It's in the range of normal.
55 to 65.
It's an old woman that when see the doctor, it's a little bit scared. Catecholamine. This is true. This is the so-called hypertension due to the white coat. So before to classify people like chronic hypertension, you should talk with the air, with him, and make him to relax, and then measure once. If you found 140 and 90 millimeters of mercury, it's a little bit high, but don't worry. Try to sleep a little bit, to do some nice walk, to relax. Next time we will check. If the next time it's again the same, then you start the therapy and the exam to exclude that it's a secondary hypertension. And we check the function of kidney. So. And this is the for Giorgio, no, Giulio.
Silvio.
Silvio.
Giulio non c'è.
Per te.
Sì.
Tutti avete risposto alle domande.
No, manca Giulio.
Manca Giulio. Giulio, who is Giulio today? I want to be Giulio.
A 60-year-old patient with a diastolic heart movement has an aortic pulse pressure of 90 millimeters of mercury. What is the likely diagnosis?
So, as a diastolic heart movement and as an aortic pulse pressure of 90 millimeters of mercury. What is pulse pressure? We said yesterday what's called the PT, Pasquale Pagliaro, so it's very important. Pulse pressure. And I went in the States to study pulse pressure. My studies in USA was about the role of pulse pressure, the destiny PP. What is pulse pressure?
Is the pressure calculated on each beat?
Mm-hmm. And this is the difference between?
Between aortic and pulmonary?
No. You can know also in the your patient, when you measure the systemic pressure, you have a maximum
And
systolic,
and diastolic.
maximum systolic minus diastolic is the pulse pressure. Well, how much is normally the pulse pressure?
Is
40. 120 minus 80. 40, 50, 45, it depends. Okay, but let's say 40. This is a semantic.
Is higher.
It's an aortic valve.
Aortic valve regurgitation.
Aortic valve regurgitation. Some aortic insufficiency. So when the valve should close, it doesn't close properly, the blood goes back in the ventricle and drops in the aorta. And we have the aorta 45, and the systolic can go to 135. The difference is 90. Because this patients need a valve replacement. Okay, now we see this summary of our pump very quickly. This is in Italian, but il cuore è un organo cavo composto da 4 camere, 2 disposte al di sopra, atri destro e sinistro, e 2 al di sotto, ventricoli destro e sinistro, di un disco fibroso che contiene 4 aperture per altrettante valvole, 2 valvole atrioventricolari che separano gli atri dai corrispondenti ventricoli e 2 semilunari che separano i ventricoli dai rispettivi grossi vasi arteriosi. Ogni camera, quando si contrae sistole atriale e sistole ventricolare, sospinge sangue attraverso la valvola aperta. I ventricoli, contraendosi, determinano l'apertura delle semilunari e sospingono sangue verso il rispettivo grosso vaso. Quando si contraggono gli atri, le valvole atrioventricolari sono già aperte e sangue viene spinto verso i rispettivi ventricoli. Tutto chiaro? Mentre gli atri ricevono sangue continuamente dal sistema venoso, perché non ci sono valvole tra grosse vene e atri, i ventricoli possono ricevere sangue dagli atri solo durante la diastole ventricolare, quando le valvole atrioventricolari sono aperte, nelle fasi di riempimento ventricolare. Noi abbiamo imparato che c'è anche una fase di diastole in cui le valvole sono chiuse, che è la
Che valvole?
Tutte le valvole sono
Nella fase
chiuse
di diastole.
nella prima fase della diastole.
Isovolumetrico.
Il rilasciamento isovolumetrico. Si è chiusa in protodiastole, si è chiusa la semilunare, vediamo il rilasciamento isovolumetrico e abbiamo il minimo volume del ventricolo in quel momento, che è svuotato il ventricolo. Di solito le fasi del ciclo cardiaco vengono riferite all'attività ventricolare, vengono descritte a partire dall'istante in cui, terminato il riempimento dei ventricoli, in questo momento qui, terminato il riempimento dei ventricoli, inizia, i ventricoli iniziano a contrarsi e abbiamo fondamentalmente 4 fasi, 2 sistoliche, sistole isovolumetriche, si chiude la valvola atrioventricolare, la camera è chiusa, sistole isovolumetriche o isovolumica, e poi quando la pressione raggiunge la pressione nell'aorta, sistole eiettive. E 2 diastoliche, rilasciamento isovolumetrico, il volume al minimo, e poi la fase di riempimento. Nella fase di riempimento distinguiamo riempimento rapido, riempimento lento e la sistole atriale. La sequenza delle varie fasi è la seguente. Sistole, che comprende la sistole isovolumetrica, in cui si chiudono le valvole ventricolari per l'aumento della pressione ventricolare, mentre le semilunari sono tenute chiuse dalla pressione aortica. Alla sistole isovolumetrica fa seguito quando la pressione ventricolare supera quella aortica e si aprono le valvole semilunari. Quindi alla sistole isovolumetrica fa seguito all'eiezione ventricolare. Quando si aprono le valvole semilunari. La fase di eiezione ventricolare è a sua volta suddivisa in fase di efflusso con accelerazione e fase di efflusso con decelerazione. Viene chiamata così, l'abbiamo anche chiamata fase con efflusso rapido e fase con efflusso lento. Forse con accelerazione e decelerazione è leggermente più appropriato, perché vedete il flusso aumenta la sua velocità da 0 al massimo e poi decelera, quindi accelera e decelera. Quindi un flusso rapido e un flusso lento. Protodiastole, che coincide con l'istante in cui si chiudono le valvole semilunari. Poi abbiamo la diastole, che comprende il rilasciamento isovolumetrico, in quale siamo qui, rilasciamento isovolumetrico, minimo volume, si è svuotato il ventricolo, svuotato, semi svuotato. A questo evento fa seguito, quando si aprono le valvole ventricolari, la fase di riempimento ventricolare, a sua volta divisa in fase di riempimento rapido, lento, sistole atriale, che completa il riempimento pompando pochi millimetri di sangue alla sistola atriale e mette le valvole in una posizione di semichiusura. Così appena poi interviene la sistole isovolumetrica, le valvole si chiudono a causa dell'aumento della pressione, nel ventricolo si chiudono e quindi siamo al massimo del volume durante la sistole isovolumetrica. Il ciclo cardiaco del cuore destro e quello del cuore sinistro presentano le stesse fasi, mentre la differenza di durata di queste fasi sono minime, la quantità di sangue messa in moto nelle varie fasi sono molto simili, la pressione sviluppata dal ventricolo destro è pari a circa 1/6 soltanto rispetto a quello del ventricolo sinistro. Perché? Questa differenza da attribuire quindi alle basse resistenze che il sangue incontra nel percorrere il piccolo circolo polmonare, che sono appunto un sesto di quelle sistemiche. La gettata sistolica, per stroke volume in Italia, è gettata sistolica. Alcune lo traducono dall'inglese in modo orribile come volume sistolico. A me non piace assolutamente. O colpo sistolico, ancora peggio. Gettata sistolica. Gettata o gittata? Più uno è vecchio più usa la I. Più giovane più usa la E. Gettata. Io sono vecchio. Gittata dipende dal precarico, della contrattività ed è ostacolata dal postcarico. Abbiamo visto che il precarico, la contrattività se aumentano lo fanno aumentare, aumenta la forza di contrazione, regolazione autometrica, regolazione aneometrica, invece il postcarico lo ostacola un pochettino per qualche battito, poi si riaggiusta. La percentuale di sangue che lascia il ventricolo a ogni sistole è detta frazione di eiezione, che è circa 55%, da 50 a 65% il range della normalità. Esso si calcola quindi con il rapporto percentuale fra gettata sistolica e quantità contenuta nei ventricoli alla fine del riempimento. Volume telediastolico ventricolare, che è un indice del precarico. Il volume telediastolico ventricolare è di solito intorno a 130 mm ed è composto dal residuo sistolico più il volume di ritorno, diastolico ventricolare. Sangue che ritorna al ventricolo è circa 70 mm, quello che ne è uscito. In condizione di steady state, in condizione dopo aver finito questo in questo momento, siamo qualche minuto di ritardo. Mi metto un sacco di svegliette, quando devo mangiare, quando devo dormire, perché questo aiuta a prolungare la vita. Insomma, a me la vita piace, è bella, poi voglio prolungare. Il volume di residuo telediastolico ventricolare corrisponde esattamente al volume di ritorno diastolico ventricolare corrisponde esattamente alla gettata sistolica in una situazione di steady state. Poi può variare momento per momento, no? Ci sono momenti in cui ne torna un po' di più e il ventricolo poi piano piano si adatta a pomparne un po' di più. Se io improvvisamente mi metto con le gambe sdraiate, con le gambe all'aria, mi torna di più, il ventricolo me ne torna a 100, non è che il ventricolo subito ne pompa 100, ne pomperà 75, 80, 85, più si riempie, più no? Continua a tornare sempre 100, ma tiene che continua a tornare sempre 100, a un certo punto arriverà a pomparne 105, 110 per recuperare quello che non avevo pompato prima, poi continua ad arrivare a 100, a un certo punto nella steady state 100 arriva, 100 viene pompato. Ci può essere una certa variabilità tra quello che torna e quello che viene pompato, però nello steady state quello che ritorna a un ventricolo deve essere pompato fuori in un minuto, quello che torna in un minuto deve essere pompato fuori, se no sono guai. Resta dentro il cuore, si riempie sempre più possibile. E questo, la legge di Starling, a questo serve l'adattamento del cuore al volume di riempimento. Quanto più si riempie, tanto più aumenta la forza di contrazione. E comunque fino a un certo punto, perché se poi si riempie troppo, via. Per ciascun ventricolo la frazione di eiezione aumenta e diminuisce rispettivamente con l'aumento e la diminuzione della contrattività. La frazione di eiezione è un indice buono di contrattività. Ci abbiamo ragionato Dato che un aumento del volume diastolico ventricolare comporta uno stiramento delle fibre miocardiche che permette loro di sviluppare una maggiore forza di contrazione, ne può conseguire un ritorno alla norma di gettata sistolica anche in presenza di insufficienza cardiaca con ridotta contrattività. Se si riduce la contrattività, quel ventricolo tende a svuotarsi di meno, quindi stare più pieno. Stare più pieno sfrutta la legge di Stahl, la regolazione arteriometrica, riesce a pompare la stessa quantità di sangue a riposo. Ha sfruttato la sua riserva e riesce a riposo, il paziente non ha grossi problemi. E quando poi deve fare uno sforzo fisico, la sua curva di contrattività si è abbassata, non riesce ad avere quelle gettate cardiache necessarie all'attività fisica e quindi comincia ad avere dispnea, fame d'aria, ad essere stanco facilmente, non riesce a salire un piano di scale. La insufficienza cardiaca poi si misura in piano di scale che riesce a fare e in cuscine da usare la notte. Quando vai a sdraiarti diventa ancora tutto il ventricolo, lo sfianchi, non la legge di Stalin che a un certo punto ti aiuta e quindi comincia ad avere un aumento della pressione nelle vene polmonari, nei capillari polmonari, interstiziale, edema polmonare, prima interstiziale, poi edema polmonare franco, quando viene fuori la schiumetta rossa dalla bocca. Se in queste condizioni viene calcolata, in queste condizioni di aumentato volume telediastolico, non di insufficienza cardiaca, per insufficienza cardiaca perché al riposo il volume rimane lì, questa risulta diminuita, quindi la frazione di erezione io la uso in clinica per vedere se il paziente migliora o non migliora, ma dobbiamo tenere presente che la pressione aortica quando faccio i vari confronti deve essere più o meno lo stesso, perché abbiamo ragionato che quando aumenta la pressione aortica la mia frazione di erezione può diminuire e questo non significa che è cambiata la contrattività. Ne consegue che la frazione di erezione è un buon indice di contrattività, ma può diminuire anche se la contrattività non è variata, come ad esempio quando la gettata diminuisce per aumenti eccessivi del post-carica a parità di volume diastolico ventricolare. La frazione di erezione si calcola gettata sistolica diviso volume telediastolico ventricolare per 100. Chiedete a me, a meno che non vi hai chiesto cosa facciamo stasera.
No, ho chiesto se fosse nel frigo che abbiamo preso prima.
Sì, c'è tutto. Sì. L'ansa pressione volume. L'ansa pressione ventricolare si ottiene riportando le variazioni di volume ventricolare sull'asse della cissa e quella delle pressioni sull'asse delle ordinate durante il ciclo cardiaco. La cissa, le ordinate. Essa permette di evidenziare graficamente e di confrontare tra di loro i vari valori dei volumi cardiaci e le loro variazioni durante il ciclo. Non credi calcolare la frazione di eiezione, perché se noi calcoliamo l'end diastolic pressure volume l'end systolic volume 130 meno 40, in questo caso fa 90, e io so che la stroke volume, la gettata sistolica è 90, quindi la frazione di eiezione è 90 diviso 130, 70% più o meno, adesso non sto a fare il calcolo preciso.
69.
69. Ci permette di valutare la contrattività del cuore, la frazione di eiezione. La reazione di fine sistole, l'end systolic pressure volume relationship, si chiama anche così in italiano, il professor Cass, dove sono stato io negli Stati Uniti, era uno dei maestri di questa roba qui. grandi studiosi. Sono stati in realtà dei giapponesi che sono stati lì a Baltimore a introdurre questo PV loop per analizzare l'attività cardiaca, e ci sono dei cateteri apposta quindi uno vede sul display le loop che si seguono uno dietro l'altro. E io faccio variare l'end systolic volume, metto un palloncino nella vena cava del paziente, dopo un po' vedo che la PV loop del ventricolo sinistro si riduce, il volume si sposta, e allora ho tante fine sistole, le metto tutte insieme e ottengo la relazione di fine sistole. E quello è un indice di contrattilità, perché se io do le prime fine, quell'indice si sposta in alto a sinistra. Se do un farmaco che fa ridurre la contrattilità, la vedo spostare in basso a destra. Ma si può ottenere con questa analisi, che permette di calcolare un ottimo indice di contrattilità, che è la pendenza length systolic slope, SS, della end systolic volume relationship. È indipendente da precarica e post-carica e risulta essere un indice migliore di frazione di eiezione. La superficie entro l'ansa, entro questa PV loop, rappresenta il lavoro che il ventricolo compie nel spostare la gettata sistolica nell'aorta imprimendo la pressione sistolica. Imprimendo una pressione, sposto del sangue, faccio un lavoro. Ho lavorato perché si è spostato il tavolo, se non si spostava avevo fatto una cosa inutile. Il lavoro potenziale del cuore può essere calcolato moltiplicando il gettata sistolica con la pressione media aortica durante la fase iettiva, l'unica fase in cui il cuore compie lavoro esterno, poiché mette in moto una massa di sangue con una certa velocità. Alcuni chiamano il momento della sistole isovolumetrica lavoro interno, che fa orripilare i fisici, perché non esiste il lavoro interno, esiste solo il lavoro esterno. In quella fase consumiamo energia, nella fase di sistole isovolumetrica, senza compiere un lavoro, e quindi è bene tenere bassa la pressione ventricolare. È bene anche tenere basso il volume ventricolare per la legge di Laplace, perché più è grande la sfera, maggiore la tensione che deve sviluppare. Però non bisogna tenere così bassa la pressione, perché sennò poi non performiamo gli organi, quindi bisogna essere bilanciare un po' gli interventi. Il lavoro potenziale del cuore può essere moltiplicato, gettata sistolica della pressione medica aorta durante la fase attiva. Praticamente calcoliamo quest'area qui, l'unica fase in cui il cuore compie lavoro esterno, poiché mette in moto una massa di sangue con una certa velocità. Pertanto, essendoci una velocità, anche la componente cinetica deve essere aggiunta alla componente potenziale del lavoro. Tuttavia, per il ventricolo sinistro la componente cinetica è solo circa il 2%, quindi la possiamo trascurare. Invece per il ventricolo destro il 12%, e può aumentare durante l'attività, perché aumenta la velocità durante l'attività fisica. E questo è un po' di fisiopatologia, una disfunzione sistolica. I ventricoli dilatati si riempiono di sangue, i ventricoli pompano meno sangue, meno del 40-50% del sangue che contengono, la frazione di eiezione è ridotta, la frazione di eiezione è 40%, se la frazione di eiezione è 40%, parliamo di insufficienza cardiaca. Però esistono anche le insufficienze cardiache con frazione di eiezione conservata, 60%. In questo caso è un ventricolo rigido che si riempie male, però poi si riempie invece di 130 arriva a 110, quando poi ne pompa 55 ha una frazione di eiezione del 50%, quindi è una frazione di eiezione buona. E quindi si dice insufficienza cardiaca con frazione di eiezione conservata. Poi piano piano questa diventerà anche un'insufficienza cardiaca con riduzione della frazione di eiezione. Poi si sfianca, si riempie di più, si svuota di meno. E questo è il riassunto in italiano. Di seguito c'è il riassunto in inglese che vi potete rileggere. Vogliamo fare una pausa? E poi facciamo gli elettricisti.
Vado a prendere i bicchieri.
Questa ore che facciamo? Cioè come l'attività elettrica del cuore? Ok. Non l'avevo letto.
Vediamo un po' abbastanza in dettaglio, ma vado rapido perché poi non è fondamentale per voi i vari canali di membrana. Il cuore ha tanti canali diversi, ne vediamo solo alcuni più importanti, ne sono tanti, ne conosce, sapere quando si aprono, quando si chiudono, come dire, direi ostriche. È bella, poi facciamo anche l'elettrocardiogramma. Se avessimo un elettrocardiografo potremmo fare un po' di pratica. Neanche a Torino ce l'abbiamo più, qualche anno fa ce l'avevamo, poi si è svolto e non l'hanno più comprato.
Cioè, scherzi, ieri ci sono a te, una cosa, non sai come si fa su Instagram questi video qua?
Qui il bagno c'è.
Sì.
That was also in English.
Someone. You can read it.
I don't understand Italian.
You don't understand. After 1 year that you study in disguise.
I'm trying. So I am confused by
Intanto sono guardati alle organizzatori di muscoli.
First line, right?
my past corresponding. So we have many points, but when we communicate to colonize us
Non lo compro loro, scusa.
I had to learn Polish for 1 year, and now I learned something.
Di Roma. Non è quella che insegna a Roma?
Siamo scesi al secondo piano. È aperto, hanno iniziato il secondo piano aperto, siamo andati a scappare la prima visione. Finito. No, ma l'ho finito e non farò loro. Se ci metti i banchi ci puoi stare. No, infatti mancano i banchi, gli accessori. Così via. Poi da me i cazzi spremano.
La testa è quella è il sito per fare la ciambella. Ah, ok,
Ci manca il frigo. Va bene. Ci manca il fuoco. Aspetta, c'è un fuoco piccolo. Non sai cos'è il fuoco figo? C'è un sistema di vita dalla testa. Il fuoco figo. Scarsi. Che pirla che si fa sto caffè così, io non lo capisco. Da bannare proprio, no. Cazzo ci prende. Poi la cialda si chiama ristretto e ci fa del caffè lungo. Cioè, prendi sta qua. Ma cosa vuoi? Perché fatto tanto per la fatto
No, I want to say when you say that
No.
when you say the caffeine friend means it's caffeine doesn't have coffee.
Decaffeinato in italiano.
Yeah, caffè.
Decaffeinato. No. No, starte. No, troppo lungo, non è pure. Ieri l'avrei scritto, ma impostato così Gianni. E poi ci ho pensato perché pure ieri non ho fatto così per sbaglio.
Ragazzi, dobbiamo andare avanti.
spiegare qui.
Wait for Christopher. È lui che ti schietta.
Sì.
Interessante. Sono solo gli italiani a più schiettare. Well, there was a question in the quiz this morning. It said, QRS is before, just before what? Just before the isovolumetric contraction. See? Okay. We have this is the electrocardiogram. E wave. Then we have the QRS complex, and then we have a segment between S and T is the repolarization of the ventricle. P is the depolarization of atrium. When the atrium, we have first the depolarization of the atrium, and a little bit later the contraction of the atrium. The atrium depolarize and then contract. P is called the depolarization of atrium. Then, after a while, we have the depolarization of ventricle, QRS. This is the rapid ventricular complex is called. Rapid ventricular complex. Complesso ventricolare rapido. QRS. Then we have a segment that is ST, and then we have T. There is a ventricular repolarization. Okay. Before the depolarization, then the contraction. And now we will study this depolarization at the cellular level. How this depolarization flow travels in the heart, and how this can generate this electrocardiogram on our body's surface. So I should close this now, otherwise we cannot see the other one.
Te ne prendo tre se può. No.
So we have the electrocardiogram. I've seen that this PQRST. Why I called it with this letter, this wave? Why P and not A? Not bodies now. I checked in the internet to find why, and I find why. You know why? Because the first time people were trying to describe the electrocardiogram, they used a different way to put the electrode on the surface, and they obtained some wave, and they called ABCD. Then they was not so good the signal. We are talking about 18th century. Okay, beginning of 19th century, the device was not so good. And then they made another procedure they called AFG HL. And then when they obtained PQRST, was the beginning of the 19th century, now we call this wave PQRST. Okay, that's a curiosity. P, we said P is the depolarization of atrium. Then there's a delay between the end of the depolarization of atrium and the depolarization of the ventricle, that is QRS. And then we have all the ventricle depolarized. There is no electrical signal. We are at zero. This is called this point when we start the S wave finish. This S is going down, then this go up. It's finished. The S wave. We have this point is called the J point. Is considered the real zero line. So we have this segment that is ST. Is all the ventricles are depolarized. The cells are on the plateau that we will see. Are all depolarized. If all the cells are depolarized, there is no difference of potential in the tissue. There is no current. And we cannot record anything. Then the ventricles start to repolarize. And when all the ventricles is depolarized, we are again, all the ventricles is depolarized. There is no more signal. We are again at the line 0. And then the next bit, PQRST. Okay? We will understand better this electrocardiogram, but we first need to understand what happens in the cells. And then we will see the tissue all together, because the electrocardiogram is not a record of a single cell, but is the record of the diffusion of the potential in the whole organ, in the whole part.
So at the level of the Q is the beginning of the isovolumetric contraction, we said.
The isovolumetric contraction begins with the
QR.
Q is the depolarization of the septum. Because the depolarization travels in the ventricle, from the septum to the free wall to the base of the ventricle. Should be one of the questions on the exam could be sketch a typical action potential in a ventricular muscle and a pacemaker cell. They are different. The action potential in the ventricular, in the cardiomyocyte that contracts the real muscle, cardiac muscle, is different from the action potential in a pacemaker cell like the sinoatrial node. And we will learn that they're very different. And so you should be able to sketch this, labeling both the voltage and the time in axis accurately. We will have the time in the axis and the voltage in the ordinate. And describe how ionic current contributed to the four phases of the cardiac action potential. We will see that in the cardiac action potential, we can distinguish four phases. And you should know which phase, which ion is moving in that moment across the membrane. use this information to explain difference in shape of the action potential of different cardiac cells. Who want to read the second objective?
Describe the ion channels that contribute to each phase of the cardiac action potential. How to differences in channel population influence the shape of the action potential in the nodal, atrial muscle, ventricular muscle, and Purkinje fiber cardiac cells.
So we have seen that there are different ion channels that contribute to each phase of the cardiac action potential. And we will see this. And we see that the cell have different population of channels, not because they have different action potential. Some cells have these family channels, some don't have these family channels. Some have the transient calcium channel, some don't have the transient or have less transient channels. Many, I would say all the cells have the L-type calcium channel. L means long-lasting or slow channels. L-type, we already mentioned, are the channels that allow the calcium to go in to start the calcium, induce the calcium release. Also, but they have different role in different cells. All the cells have this channel, but the role is different in the different cells. We will see all this stuff. Okay. Then we go back to the objective and we will see if we acquired all the objectives. This is the way you should study. I give you this objective, read the objective. You the first time read all the stuff, try to understand, then you read the objective and say, oh, I'm able to do this, I'm not able to do this. Let's try by I'm able to draw the action potential. I'm not good to draw, I exercise, and I do it. Right? We will see the different effect of sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. We will learn. We have 131 slides. This is a schematic representation of the different type of cells. The wall are made by the working cells in the atrium and in the ventricle. They have as a special property the contractility. Why are you smiling? We have the conduction system. The conduction system is this sinoatrial node, the atrioventricular node, Isabella. The atrioventricular node is in the atrium. Then we have the bundle of fascia di His, that cross this membrane, this membranacea part of the wall of the septum and go in the ventricle. This is the only way the impulse can travel. Then the bundle of His divide in two bundles, the right and the left, and they have branches, and they originate a network of Purkinje fibers that contact very fast the impulse. sinoatrial node, atrioventricular node, atrioventricular Purkinje system. And they have as a special property, automaticity. The cell can automatically originate an action potential. They don't need the stimulus from the nervous system. If I want to give a punch, I cannot say what's the muscle that it is. Yes, the brain to think about and give the order to the motor neurons, alpha motor neurons, that should stimulate the muscle to contract finally. They have done this because there are this cell that are able to automatically generate an action potential. And this guy, this sinoatrial node, is the faster and impose this rhythm because the impulse generated there travel more or less quickly. It depends on in some point it's quickly, in some point slow down, but reach the cell before that they can have their automatic activity. And so all the cells are depolarized by the propagation of the impulse. So we distinguish two big categories. The fast, these are the fast action potential. Look, why fast? Because this phase is very fast. It's the depolarization from minus 85 millivolts.
There is not
There's no
Mouse.
there's no mouse. Very fast. This is the zero phase. Very fast. This is kind of fast action potential. And this is atrial, and this is ventricular. Very similar. Not identical, but very similar. We will concentrate on the ventricular. And this is a kind of slow response. And you say slow because this is slower. The polarization is slower. That's because it's called slower. But this has also a slow pre-potential, diastolic depolarization is called diastolic depolarization or pre-potential. Pre-potential. This is a slow response. And this is typical of sinus in the atrioventricular node. Atrium, ventricle, node, sinoatrial node. Sorry. So to record an action potential, I need two electrodes, one inside the cells and one outside the cells. And I measure the membrane potential. It's not the cell potential, it's the membrane potential. The difference is between the inside and outside of the membrane. I have an amplifier, connect the electrode to an amplifier and to an oscilloscope on display. I will see that there is a resting potential of about minus 90 millivolt. I hope Professor Roncini explained you the origin of the resting potential in the nervous. The same reason is in the cardiac, the muscle and the cardiac cells. We have the membrane that is permeable only to potassium in this moment. The potassium is concentrated inside by the pump, potassium pump, but the potassium can go out because there are potassium channels. Potassium channels go out and leaves the anion protein inside. The anions are negative, and so inside we have a minus 17 in the nerve. Here we have a minus 19 because there are a lot of potassium channels that are called with a strange, very strange name, inward rectifier. Inward rectifier. It's misleading for a student because inward means that goes in. No, the potassium is going out. If you, we spend a few words to explain why this strange name. Okay, the potassium is going out. We found in water rectifier. Yes. Do you have an Italian? This is Conte. Also in Italian, it's called the inward rectifier.
105.
Why is so? This is why it's minus 90, minus 85. The resting potential in this cardiac muscle. This is cardiomyocytes. The cardiomyocytes. If we are the cardiomyocytes, body disturbed, it will stay at minus 90. Okay. But when we stimulate with an electrode or an action potential is traveling in the conduction system arrive there, we have the polarization of the membrane and an action potential starts. We here have the opening of sodium channels and that allow the sodium to go inside. Then we have a kind of short repolarization because repolarization is always due to
Repolarization.
It's always due to the opening of which channels, which always repolarization is due to the opening of
Sodium channels.
sodium channels is depolarization because the sodium is concentrated outside. And potassium channel. And the potassium goes always out because it's concentrated inside. The ions moves across the membrane, or because they are pumped or exchanged. Okay, the pump against the gradient, also against the gradient, consuming ATP, or the exchanger that exploit the work of a pump. The pump, sodium potassium, creates the gradient for the sodium, and the calcium exchanger allow the sodium to go in and the calcium to go out. Or by channels. The channels distinguish between the different ions are specific. We have calcium channel, we have a sodium channel, we have a potassium channel, we have some cationic channels that allow to be crossed by, are not so specific. But sorry, the ions moves across the membrane for electrochemical gradient. It's passive. So, and they follow the gradient, the electrochemical gradient. So the potassium, when we open the calcium, potassium channel, the potassium go out because it's more concentrated inside, and go out until it reaches 95 millimeters of minus 95 millivolt in the membrane inside. When it's minus 95, it's at equilibrium. The negative, say, the negative charge say, don't go away, stay with me because you are positive and negative. I love you. So the gradient, there is the equilibrium between the gradient that push out, the gradient that go inside. But now we are very faster, very distant from the minus 95. Here we have the opening of transient outward potassium channels. And the potassium go out little bit, are transient. Then here we have the calcium that go in, because when we start the depolarization, we have the opening of the calcium channel, which actually started to be open here, because when it's minus 45, they start to open, but they are long-lasting channels. They open slowly. And they open, and the calcium go in, and the calcium going in maintains the plateau. This is the plateau, the top of the hill. Then some potassium channel, some other potassium channel, the delayed rectifier. Delayed rectifier opens, and then we have the full repolarization. The moment in which we will record the T in the electrocardiogram. So, resting potential minus 90. Action potential, we have the phase zero rapid depolarization. It takes 1 millisecond to reach the maximum. Early rapid repolarization, phase 1. Then we have the plateau. The potential is around 0 in the last, let's say, 200 milliseconds. Phase 3, late rapid repolarization, that takes 50, 100 milliseconds, 120 milliseconds to be complete, to take place. So the action potential will last 300 milliseconds. It's very long. We have in some other part of the body, we have some action potential that is longer than this in the stomach, the smooth muscle. This is another story. This is very long. 300 in humans, 500 in an elephant, 200 birds, 100 in a rat. Anyway, it's around 100, not 10 millisecond or 5 millisecond or 2 millisecond like the nerve. So I say that the channel in the atrial and the ventricular muscle are very similar. the best study are those in ventricle, so we'll concentrate on volume. And we have a voltage gate sodium channels open in phase 0. We have an inward rectifier potassium channel that are opened at resting and they close during the plateau. This is important to close, otherwise in that moment, if these are so many, we say that so many, if they don't close, we lose a lot of potassium. Because in that moment, it's positive inside. And so the gradient are both in the direction to go out. It's a good thing that they close. That is why I call the inward rectifier. We have the L-type calcium channels. We have seen that they start to open in phase 0 and they are very a maximum of opening is during the plateau. And several voltage gated potassium channels that are a family of delayed rectifier. Why we should know something about this these channels? It's not because this physiologists are strange people, they like these channels. That's because we have pathology, canalopathia. Channels pathology. In Italian, this bad word, canalopathia. And the people have a problem of arrhythmias. Player that died recently, the Italian soccer player. He had a kind of canalopathia that was not recognized. A story. We have the long QT syndrome. People with this channels pathology of they can be both potassium or sodium channel altered. In some family, are the potassium, in some are the sodium, and they have this long QT syndrome. If the time that go from Q to T in the electrocardiogram is longer than usual, these people are very at risk to have ventricular fibrillation and will die suddenly, sudden death. So in some family, I will tell you one thing, please open your ear, because it's important, the ear. In some family, there are people that die during the night, so without apparent reason, sudden death, playing tennis, sleeping. And so the same family, they are deaf, sort of. Some because they have some alteration in potassium channels. And in here we have some kind of potassium channel that are unique, because this is the only known channels in which, when they open, the potassium, instead to go out, go in the cell. And why? Because there is a different gradient. Because the cells are the endolympha, they are the air cells. The air cells, they have this potassium channel that are in contact with the endolymph. Endolymph is very rich in potassium, and so the potassium goes inside to go outside. And this is the signal when the sound reach the this organo del corpi. Yeah, we can hear something because they change your orientation and the channels opens and the potassium go inside. Do you explain some the function of the eyes? No, very quickly.
Little bit, yes.
Anyway, this family with this pathology. The sodium channels are very similar to those you have studied in the nerves. Very fast, as in activation states. What means in activation states? That they opens and allow the sodium to go in. But suddenly some other structure close, and if you stimulate the cell again, you cannot stimulate again. The cell is in a refractor period. So these are expressed in a non-nodal tissue, in the cardiac working cells. Okay, nodal tissue. There are some cells that have this, but are not so important in the nodal tissue. There are some that have this channel, but this is a mainly non-nodal tissue. And are responsible for initiating and propagating the action potential in non-nodal cells. Now, in non-nodal cells, the zero phase is due to this channels. The zero phase is because these channels are opening. This is the structure of an inward rectifier. Are non-voltage sensor. They have no voltage sensor, but when the voltage is positive, they close. And the mechanism is due to the magnesium. The magnesium go there to when the potential is minus 30, when it's zero, around zero, the magnesium go there and close the channel. And so during the plateau, the inward rectifier don't allow the potassium to go out. They allow the potassium to go out when the membrane is minus 90 at resting. So they set resting potential in atrial and ventricular muscle. In this muscle, and they close during the plateau, avoiding the loss of potassium, contribute to the late phase of action potential, repolarization in non-nodal cell. In phase 3, they reopen. In phase 3, they reopen. Okay? And they stay open in phase 4. So we have the transient outward ITO, as called this channels, potassium channels. These potassium channels open here, and we have this transient repolarization, phase 1. Then delayed rectifier, different family, start to reopen. Rapid, ultra rapid, slow, delayed rectifier, because we are only called the delayed rectifier that opens, and so in this moment there is a fight here. Some potassium channel start to open and to try to repolarize the cells, and some calcium is going inside that keep the plateau. That's because it's staying around zero, the membrane potential. When the calcium channel close, only the potassium stay open, so we have the repolarization. The ultra rapid fights with the calcium to maintain the plateau. The kappa KR and AK are structurally and functional complex. The cardiac calcium channels, the L type, are structurally rather similar to sodium channels and have some functional similarity to. They open during the polarization. Okay, like the sodium channel, they open during the polarization and contribute to the phase zero and maintains the plateau. Are slower. The difference with the sodium channel is because they are slower. Very slow in activation and generate much less current. In nodal cells, this, as I said, the calcium channel are present in all cells. They are also present in nodal cells. And in the nodal cells, they initiate and propagate action potential. The slow type of action potential. Why is it slow? Because they don't have sodium channels, but they have calcium channels that open in a phase zero. It's only the calcium channel open in the phase zero. And so they have this slow action potential. In non-nodal cells, they control only the phase zero. In non-nodal cell, they control the duration, the plateau, and determines the contraction. The calcium go in and induce the calcium release. Calcium-induced calcium release and contraction. Okay, this is the calcium role. So, if I graph time on the axis and force here and the action potential in the ordinate, I see that the contraction occurs during the action potential. If I use a calcium blocker, diltiazem, verapamil, there are names of calcium blockers. If I use a calcium blocker, I see what? I see a shortening of the action potential because the plateau lasts less longer. And I see a reduction of the force of contraction. Are negative inotropic drugs. Okay? they can be used, for example, when I want that the heart don't consume so much oxygen, because they are also vasodilator. They dilate the arterioles and reduce the pressure, improve the flow to the heart, because it dilates the coronary artery, and it made the ventricle to work less strong, with a less inotropic force, and so are used in some coronary. The artery, we have the same channels, just less calcium channels, so we have a plateau less pronounced, with a minor amplitude. Overview. This is a schematic representation of the sodium channel. The sodium channel has two gates. The gates of activation gate is the M gate. It's closed at rest. At rest is closed. When a depolarization arrives, when an impulse arrives, the membrane voltage changes, they open. When the voltage is minus 55, they open. And that determines the action potential. The gate. Soon, during the phase 1, the H gate close. And this is inactivation gate. And this makes the cell not the channel, make the channels not akin to be open. They don't want to open because there is this gate closed. This gate will reopen when the cells go back in repolarization around minus 50. So when the polarization is around 0, they close. When the membrane potential is around 0, the H gate close, and the cell is not excitable anymore, cannot be excited. When the cell repolarized, they assume again this position. The M gate is closed, and the H gate is open. And now the cell can be again excited, stimulated, excited. Okay? So in phase 0, we have, this is the gradient, green and gray. The chemical gradient for the sodium, very strong to go inside. The electrical gradient, very strong to go inside. But the sodium don't go inside so much because the channels are closed by the M gate. The stimulus determines the polarization of the membrane. The M channel open, the gradient is very big, and the sodium zoom go inside, and it determines the fast depolarization. Then the H gate start to close when the membrane is around 0 plus 30 millivolt, the H gate is closed, even though the electric gradient is, the chemical gradient is still prevalent on the electrical gradient that is now reverse direction. The sodium don't go in because the H is closed. And the H don't allow the heart to be again excited. We are in phase 1 of the action potential. I forget the mouse. Okay. But did you follow me in the sequence of this H and AIM gate? This is the inward rectifier that are open in phase 4. The resting is phase 4. We start from phase 4. Then we have the opening of the sodium channel, phase 0. The opening of the ito, transient outward current. This E means current. I in italiano, means current, transient outward. Then we have this calcium channels and ultra rapid potassium channel fighting. They fight and calcium go in. A little bit of potassium go out, and we have the plateau that stay at around 0. Then other potassium channels opens, the delay rectifier, and we have the repolarization, phase 3. This graph is a representation of what I just said. Okay, which is this color? The name of this color?
Light blue.
Light blue, azzurro.
Light blue. Light blue.
Light blue. Go down from the line. We have the 0 line. It's go down. It means that the ion is going inside the cell. When it go up, it means that the ions is going out of the cells. Okay, and so we have the sodium current inside. Calcium current, as you see, starts almost together, and this is the maximum is in this moment, the state. Okay, then gradually reduce. This is at the resting, the inward rectifier are open. They close during the plateau. They reopen in the repolarization. The ito is the potassium that go out in phase 1. And then the other potassium channel that start to open and they are very, the maximum of the opening is this moment in phase 3 to have the repolarization. Transmembrane potential or rhythmic cells, the cell that are automatism, which is the serum atrial node cell. And you see, it's not the potential during diastole is not stable. It gradually goes up. Then we have a slower action potential with no phase 1 with a little bit of plateau, collinetta, and then phase 3 repolarization. Their maximum depolarization on diastole is minus 70, minus 60, minus 70. So it's different. They don't have so much inward rectifier. Low amplitude and long duration of phase 0. Not sharp as ventricle, not sharp, but no phase 1 and 2. Yes, if you want, no phase 1, but a short phase 2. Spontaneous depolarization at phase 4. This is the automatic property. Spontaneous depolarization at phase 4. This is another sinoatrial node action potential. And why we have this potential with slow depolarization? We have some strange, bizarre, funny channels. This name, funny channels, was given to this channel by an Italian, Dario Di Francesco, working at Oxford University. And why bizarre? Why funny? Say funny because he was studying this the property of this cell and discovered that in the moment of repolarization, hyperpolarization, hyperpolarization, the moment that the cells are going at the lowest potential, the sodium current starts. Physiologists never saw before sodium to go in repolarization. They were used to see sodium to go in depolarization. And that's because funny channels. Let's spend some other word on the funny channels. So when we have the repolarization, they start to open, and sodium go in and reverse the orientation of the voltage change. It's going down, then it's going up, and it starts the life because our beat will continue. We have the prepotential slowly go up because then we have the sodium, sodium going in the family channels, and we have potassium channel that are closing even more, so positive charge stay inside. And we have some transient calcium channel that contribute to bring the potential here to minus 40, minus 45. Then calcium channel L-type open, and we have the 0 phase. Then voltagium gated calcium potassium channel, no inward rectifier potassium channel, but delayed rectifier potassium channel, and we have the repolarization. Okay, so in phase 0 we have calcium current. That the calcium, okay, don't forget. In this cell is the calcium that determines the phase 0. The calcium, not the sodium, are unique. Then we have the repolarization to do the potassium current. Then during the hyperpolarization, the funny current starts. This is the most important current that determines this slow depolarization, this slow prepotential. When we are at the threshold, for the opening of calcium channel, we have the phase 0 again, and we have.
Could you please repeat the ions involved in the? At the beginning, you said that is the calcium.
Calcium.
Okay, in the phase 0. Potassium for the repolarization.
Potassium for the repolarization. Potassium always for the repolarization. Potassium channel. Then when we have a hyperpolarization, here the funny channel opens, and we have
In the funny channels, what kind of ions?
prevalently sodium, or not so specialized for sodium, but mainly sodium that go inside, but slowly, are not fast. Okay, and so slowly the prepotential goes up and up and up until there is also a contribution of transient calcium channel that are not reported here, but there is also this contribution. And then here is L-type calcium channels. Again, the same story with different representation. We have this sodium that go in the funny current, IF, funny current. Then we have the calcium that go in the phase 0. And then we have the potassium that go out in the phase 3. And again, we have.
So the rule of the funny channels, is to permit a shortening of the rate of action potential.
No, it's to permit to have again a depolarization. You have the repolarization in the funny channel.
So, but quickly, without the funny channels is lower, no? The repolarization.
Without funny channel, you can have this short so back. This is the prepotential. It's not stable. Why is not stable? Because we have funny channel, because we have a transient calcium channel. If you remove the funny channels, you can have some of this stuff, not so frequently, not so, and this will be less steeper, and you reach. This one. Now, this is the prepotentiale. You need the funny current to have this. If you block the funny current, there are drugs that blocks the funny current, drug that block the funny current. It's called, for example, ivabradine. You can have an action, the heart rate don't stop, because you have the calcium channel that can contribute.
The heart rate decrease.
The heart rate decrease. The heart rate decrease. When you when boys, girls, this channel are called HCM. What means HCM? H stands for hyperpolarization. C for channel, and N for nucleotide. That's its CIMP that we studied yesterday. When I do this, and she has adrenaline, noradrenaline, that goes beta receptor on the sinus node, the nucleotide increase and the CMP by MP cyclical increases. And then this channel are more acting to be open. If they are more acting to be open, this prepotential becomes steeper. Isabella looks this steeper, and so you reach this threshold before, and the heart rate increase. But we will see this later on. Okay, now we have the funny current, the calcium current, and the potassium current. These are the most important current in these cells. The funny current starts in hyperpolarization. And again, we have the sodium that go in and so on. This is a representation of the current, the funny current that go in, the calcium current that go in, the sodium, the potassium current that go out during the cycle. Some of the representation of the ionic core current. So the phase 0 is due to the calcium that go in, okay? That's because of I called your attention again. And here it's the potassium that go out in repolarization. And in the prepotential, in the depolarization, diastolic depolarization is called this. Space is called diastolic depolarization. It's due to funny current and calcium transient current. The atrioventricular node has something similar, but they have less funny channels, and so it's slower. It's slower. If I destroy the sinoatrial node, I will not die because the atrioventricular node can become the pacemaker. And instead to have 70 beats per minute, I will have 55 beats per minute. Why I don't see the activity of the atrioventricular node? Because it takes so long to be auto-excited, be automatically excited, that the impulse came from the atrium, and the impulse it's written and say, oh, wake up, depolarize now, when I say, not when you want. And there's the propagated impulse that propagate from the sinus, that impulse is written as the pacemaker, because it's faster. Why is the pacemaker? The question, why the sinoatrial node is the pacemaker and not the node, the atrioventricular node? Because the sinoatrial node is faster. Otherwise, they are very similar. They are this calcium potassium repolarization and the slower funny current. Is it clear? Also the Purkinje. The Purkinje are very strange cells. They don't decide if they are male or female. They are fast or slow. Because they are some kind of fast, but they have some funny current. Okay? So if I destroy this sinus node, I destroy the atrioventricular node, I will not die. Because my Purkinje cell can give me a rhythm, but at a lower frequency, let's say 30 bits, 25 bits per minute. I don't feel very good with 25 bits per minute, but will not die. I will go to the hospital. They put me on a pacemaker to be in healthy condition. Yes, 20. Even if I add 160 milliliter in each systole, the stroke volume is 160. For 25, how much is my cardiac output? 25-360.
25-360.
Ponte 3 litri, more or less.
Oh,
25-315.
4 litri. I need 5 liters, or I don't feel good. Okay. The Purkinje are very similar to ventricular cells, plus a very small amount of pacemaker current. It's a funny current. At phase 4, the membrane potency does maintain at level 90, but depolarize automatically, and this is the atomicity. As we say, the funny channel are called HCN, because hyperpolarization and nucleotide regulated. Remember, the calcium channel are activated by PKA, protein kinase A, that is activated by CMP. So it require 2 steps, CMP and PKI, that go to the phosphorylate. Instead, this channel are regulated directly by the CMP. As we say, they are not particularly selective. They allow also a little bit of potassium to go out, sodium go in, and potassium go out. The ions follow the gradients. They open, they don't distinguish. They prefer, they say, please let the sodium go in, and the potassium is a male that they go out a little bit later and less. Okay. So just the different shape of the. So we have the sinatral node, the atrium, the atrioventricular node, the ventricle, with the stable and the Purkinje fiber with the stable diastolic phase. This is the faster. And so impulse is written. And this one that you already the Stanius ligature. This guy, 200 years ago, he took a frog and the turtle heart, and with a lace made a ligature around the this arts of the sinus node that you can see outside of the atrium. So it's easy to make a ligature, and it so that the heart stopped, but after a while it started to beat again at a slower rate. Then he made another ligature between the atrium and the ventricle, and the heart stopped to beat. Then after a while, the heart start to beat slower. And they say there is a hierarchy. The higher impulse it's written to the lower. The hierarchical organization of the pacemaker, and the fastest impulse itself. Il più veloce si impone. And they say, passo, passo. When you did the military service, somebody that's imposed the rate pacemaker. Okay, so in our arts there are several pacemakers, but the faster one is node senoatriale, sinus atrial node. And the impulse originates here and propagates through some conduction system, fascicoli, bundles, autostrade, preferential ways to diffuse and to invade all the tissue. Then, even in the atrium, we have this preferential way to travel from right to left, from right to atrioventricular node. That's in the septum of the atrium. Then to the east and the Purkinje rapid distribution. The atrioventricular node is called the delay box. The impulse slows down. And then in the atrioventricular node, the velocity is like a person that is working fast. In the ventricle, it's like a bicycle, 40 km all'ora. Excitability of cardiac muscle. So we have said that they are excitable in the phase 4, are not cannot be excited in during the action potential because are in the refractor period. Okay, that's very important. Absolutely, we distinguish the absolute refractor period and the relative refractor period. The relative refractor period, I say that the H gate starts to reopen here. So some intense stimuli can make an excitation. That is because of relative if I use a stimulus with a greater intensity as usual, we have a stronger than normal stimulus can induce depolarization because some channels have already opened their H gate, the sodium channel. Do you follow me? Absolute refractor period. No stimulus can trigger an action potential. Whatever is the intensity of the stimulus, I cannot induce another action potential during the plateau. Relative refractor period, higher stimulus with an higher intensity and unusual can trigger an action potential. This is because of the H gate, that is another representation of the same story, the H gate. I don't go repeat the story, it's clear. So, look that. This is the mechanical activity of the cell. I can measure the force they develop in grams. And this is the electrical activity. More or less superimposed. It's different from muscle, skeletal muscle. We have the plateau that lasts 300 milliseconds, the refractor period that lasts more than 250 milliseconds, compared to 1.5 millisecond in neurons and the skeletal muscle fibers. The refractor period is longer here. The action potential is longer and the refractor period is longer. So, long refractor periods prevents tetanic contraction. What is tetanic contraction?
The muscles.
When the contraction fuse, the various contractions fuse together and make a continuous contraction.
Continuous contraction. It's the normal contraction of the skeletal muscle. Look at. And stay contracted. This is tetanic contraction. This is tetanic contraction. It's normal. The twitch, la scossa singola, just the ace cover the palpebral twitch. Now my muscle to keep me to stand up are in a tetanic contraction. Actually, are incomplete tetanic contraction. There is an oscillation of force. And why I don't do this way? I'm not in because there is a desynchronization of the several motor units. What is a motor units?
It's the motor neuron plus the fiber switching.
Motor neuron with its fiber. So are not completely synchronized. So the sum of the force is stable. And I stay, because there are some reflex, the myotatic reflex that help me to stay. When some of the units are stretched, they contract. So the other one is relaxing, so it's stretching. If I say, attenti, what is attenti in English? To be rigid, then my units are in fused tetanus. Okay? That's physiology of the skeletal muscle.
Just to understand this plateau theory on the graph, it simply means, it simply means the longer the plateau, like the refractory period, then it gives like more time for the cardiac muscles action potential not to come together. So the end effect is maybe the cardiac muscle technique not happen.
Right.
So this is the main point of the plateau and the
We are discussing this. The main point is this, that the presence of long refractory period don't allow the possibility to have tetanus. So the cardiac muscle contract always as a single twitch. Contract and relax, contract and relax, so it can feel and if it was possible to have beta, you cannot feel. The function of the pump is gone. So systole and diastole occur alternatively. Very important for but and you see here the skeletal muscle. You have the action potential here that lasts very short. Then when the muscle is contracted, if you stimuli again the muscle, you can have another contraction, another depolarization, and another mechanical factor, and they fuse together, increasing the frequencies of the stimuli. You can obtain a fused tetanus in the skeletal muscle. No, in the heart. In the heart, if you stimuli in this moment, it's in refractory period. You cannot. So in the tetanus, what fuse each other? The mechanical activity. The electrical activity never fuse each other. Yeah, because if you stimuli here again the skeletal muscle, you obtain nothing. You should stimuli here, you have another action potential, and the contraction sum to this. The mechanical sum each other, the electrical neither. And so you have the tetanus in the skeletal muscle. You cannot have the tetanus in the. There is a supranormal period at the end of phase 3, at the beginning of phase 4. For your information, these are dangerous. If moment for several reasons, and can induce arrhythmias if you have a stimuli that occurs in this moment. Because it's closer to the threshold for the activation of sodium, so it's easier to obtain again an activation. Then there are some cells that are not completely repolarized, some other cells are completely repolarized, the impulse starts, and they go in one way can go, another way cannot go, and then the impulse travel in the ventricle, then comes back and found the portion of the heart now repolarized, and the impulse range is the range of the impulse, and this travel continues the arrhythmias. So that's because it's dangerous. This is super normal period. That is in this moment. So In the cardiac muscle, impulse generation is intrinsic in the heart, extrinsic in the skeletal muscle. You need the neurons to stimulate the plaque, the skeletal muscle. We in the cardiac muscle, we have the plateau, the skeletal muscle, no plateau. The refractor period is very long in cardiac muscle, shorter in the skeletal muscle. And the mechanical summation is impossible in cardiac muscle, but possible in normal skeletal muscle. If we have a premature excitation, we have an arrhythmia, we have an extra systole. In the supernormal period, you have an extra systole, and you have a contraction that is weaker than the normal. Why is weaker this contraction? For several reasons, but also because there was no time to fill. No time to fill, so the force of contraction was weak. Okay. Then you have a longer pause, long resting, and you have the feeling. We have the compensatory pause. You have the feeling, and the contraction is stronger than before. When the patients come to you and say, "Doctor, I feel some strong beat in my," I feel boom, boom. They don't say, "I feel an extra systole." Okay. They feel the stronger beat. There is the post-extrasystolic pause. That is compensatory when the extrasystole is ventricular and non-compensatory when the extrasystole is atrial. And the reason is here. You have the extrasystole in the atrium. This originates in some point of the atrium. For some reason, you have a focus ectopic. Place that go crazy and start to auto-excite with auto-excitation. For example, for too much caffeine that can alter the equilibrium of calcium inside the cell. You have a cell that's out depolarized at some point, might be of the conduction system. This depolarization goes in two ways. Below to have the ventricular contraction, and upward to reset the sinoatrial node. The sinoatrial node was in the phase of prepotential, didn't complete the prepotential, and so you have this. So the sinus atrial node restarts its work, and you have the next beat with a compensatory pause. Non-compensatory pause. Non-compensatory, because if you sum this plus this is less than 2 regular beats. It's non-compensatory pause. If the beat starts in the ventricle, what happens? It happens that you have the excitation of the ventricle, contraction of the ventricle, extrasystole. But in the meantime, the atrium is losing its time to have the depolarization, to have its action potential, to depolarize the atrium. And then the start is a cycle, repotential, depolarization to depolarize the atrium, the venue. And you see you have a compensatory pulse. This compensatory is 100 to 1,200 milliseconds plus 400 is equal to 2 normal cycles, because the atrium does is 2 normal cycles. One losing, wasting its time, and the other one to have the post-systolic beat, post-extrasystolic beat. As you see, the extrasystole is not as a bit more. It's a word, it's a misleading word. It's not a bit, an additional bit. It's a premature bit. It's you don't have a bit, an additional bit. Very not so frequently. You can see an extrasystole like this. This is an extrasystole, an interpolated extrasystole. And this is an additional bit that don't disturb, don't go to the atrium to disturb the activity of the impulse that is originated in the ventricle. You have the next bit to come. Usually you have a lower frequency. So between a bit and another bit, you can have an extrasystole, but it's not so frequent. If you want, we can rest 5 minutes and then talk another 15 minutes. Okay?
Sì, non vuoi capire che cosa?
Quello che chiedeva prima della cosa dei cani.
So this is the first lecture that is going to start our particular portion.
This lady does, on YouTube, nice.
We're then going to talk about electrical
Film. Sì.
Patrocinato a destra.
As we go through the cardiac cycle.
I need to close this.
Okay, hi everyone. This is lecture 17, blood vessels and blood function. So today we're going to consider the cardiovascular system. We're going to review the structure and the basics of the individual blood vessels. And then we're really going to do a lot of equations today. So make sure you have some extra paper, make sure you've got some coffee, and put on your game face and
If you
try not to be intimidated
don't have
by the equations.
the feeling to study yourself and want to listen this lady, don't say so much about the story.
In the heart, for how
Because
well
you should
the
be
heart is functioning.
careful
as
on
it tries to get
internet.
blood
There
out
are
of
some,
tissues. So we're going to talk about blood flow
let's
and
say,
blood pressure
very stupid things.
through the different blood vessels, arteries, arterioles, capillaries, and veins. And at the very end, we'll bring it all together and I'll give you a summary of regulation of the heart and blood vessels. So just to remind you, the previous lecture focused on the heart. So we talked about the heart as a double-sided pump. And as the heart is pumping, it's establishing blood pressure that is needed to get the blood flow out to the tissues. The blood vessels then are passageways for the blood to be distributed throughout the body so that the blood can...
That's good.
Hi everyone, this is lecture 16, Cardiac Physiology. So this is the first lecture that is going to
Do you
start
like
on
the way this talks?
So we're going to go over and just review the anatomy of the heart. We're then going to talk about electrical activity within the heart and put that together with the mechanical events that happen during the cardiac cycle. As we go through the cardiac cycle, we will talk
She
about
talks
some
first
of the
of cardiac
equations
electrical
and
heat and then
calculations
of cardiac
that will be done for looking at the volumes
one or the other way.
different portions during the cardiac cycle and what the heart is actually putting out in terms of how much blood is being pumped. So that is cardiac output. So we're going to start with an overview of the cardiac system. So the heart is a double-sided pump, and the point of the heart is to establish blood pressure. So as the heart is pumping, it's pushing on the blood, and it's doing that to increase blood pressure and get blood flow out to the tissues. Once it moves out of the heart with blood pressure, then it's going to travel through the blood vessels, which are passageways for the blood, to be distributed throughout the body. And the point of this is to get the blood to the tissues where it can exchange materials to and from the cells of the body and deliver the important materials that the body needs and remove the wastes that need to be prevented from building up body tissues. We will also do a final lecture on blood, where we will review pumping. Because of this, it's very important to understand that a heart muscle can function as all one. So once you get an electrical signal to get the heart pump, it's 60 beats. Then there will be a pause because of the density of connective tissue where the valves are between the atrial and the food septum will have a little what we call a breathing. It's about 100 milliliters.
The same thing as I told you, are not different. We will have also this figure. Okay. So if you like, we want to hear this lady or want to hear from me? She makes you to sleep. If you suffer of insomnia, you can. Oh, I can close this now. Yes.
You watch the activity spreading
And these are some electrocardiogram where you can see the extra systole, battito prematuro in Italian. You see the P wave. The P wave is different from the other P because this is an extra systole. The origin is different, so it propagates in different way, and the electrocardiogram does a different shape. Here the P is after than the QRS. You see the P here, the small P, because this starts in the, let's say, in the bundle of is, the stimulus, and go down to the ventricular activity and up to do the atrial activity together, and they fuse. You have QRS and P. This is an extra systole of ventricular origin. You see the shape of the QRS is very different because it can originate, for example, at the apex of the ventricle and then diffuse. And you have the contraction of the ventricle. So we can remove this. Got to go. Let's play. Okay, so just, but we will explain first the origin of the normal electrocardiogram, then you will understand better. Yeah. We have seen this. Let's see, the synapse and atrial node spontaneous activity is 95, 110 beats per minute. Why we have 70? If the intrinsic, if I take an active person and they remove it from the body and do the perfusion with the system to keep it alive, the frequency is 110. It's not 70. Because we don't need the nervous control, but the nerves are there, sympathetic that accelerate, and parasympathetic that brake. It's like when a woman drive a car, they use both accelerator and brake. It's bad Italian behavior. So the brake, the parasympathetic, prevails on the accelerator, and we have 70 beats per minute. If when I do exercise, the first thing that happens is to reduce the parasympathetic tone, to remove the foot from the brake. And so I accelerate my heartbeat. This is the real physiological response. People think that the real physiological response is the increase of sympathetic to accelerate the heartbeat. The best is to move the brain. Then I contributed. And it takes longer to have the sympathetic activity than even at the cellular level, that have to remove the parasympathetic activity. So the normal pacemaker 70 beats per minute because of nervous control, 6, 8 beats per minute. You have the latent pacemaker that can be ectopic pacemaker. In some circumstances, they are quicker than the sinoatrial node and have the extrasystole. The override, so we have the capture effect. The capture effect is the impulse go and say depolarize now, no, when want you. Capture the cell and depolarize the cell. The impulse. The override suppression. Remember that I say the status with the ligature negated, and after a while, because when a pacemaker is stimulated by another pacemaker, there is this override suppression. It's suppressed. And then when I remove the pacemaker, before that they wake up, the second pacemaker, before they wake up, takes a while. Okay? The right suppression of this. The nervous control accelerates or decelerates the discharge frequency. So this is sympathetic effect. When I stimulate, I stimulate in this moment. After a while, I see the sympathetic effect. It becomes steeper and I accelerate the frequency. If I stimulate just here, the vagal effect, the parasympathetic nerve that go to the heart is the vagus. The vagal effect, I see an hyperpolarization and a slowing down of the prepotential. So it starts from lower level, it takes longer to reach the threshold and to have the action potential. That's because of the frequency is reduced. So the impulse originates here, go to the atrioventricular node, then to the bundle, then to the two branches, left and right, and the Purkinje fibers. This is the sequence of depolarization. This is the velocity, 0.4 meter per second. In the box, 0.02 meter per second. Delay. And rapid in the Purkinje system, 4 meters per second. And sufficiently rapid in the ventricle muscle, 1 meter per second. So the delay in the transmission of the atrioventricular node is responsible of this delay between P and QRS.
The cardiac fiber are connected with intercalated discs. These are mechanical, take together the cells. So it's like a single cells from the mechanical point of view, but also from the electrical point of view, because here we have the connection made by connections. And so the impulse can go easily through this gap junction channels, and they diffuse the action potential. The ions move and create this electrotonic current that generate the impulse in the other sides. One cell starts to depolarize, and the other cells are depolarized by this electrotonic currents. Also, the diameter of the fibers is important. The bigger are the fibers, the faster is the velocity. Like in the tube, the ions go easily in a bigger cell. Why in the atrioventricular node there is this slowing down? Because the fibers are thin. Vagus nerve release acetylcholine in the postganglionic fiber, and in contrast, muscarine receptors. M stands for muscarinic receptors on cardiac cells, and opens potassium channel. That's because we have the hyperpolarization I show you. When we stimuli with the bag, the cell hyperpolarize because the potassium channel are open. Calcium permeability decrease, and so you have this slowing down of the frequency. In the atrium, why in the atrium and not in the ventricle? Because in the ventricle, the vagus nerve don't reach the ventricle. Few vagal fibers reach the ventricle. They stop on the atrium. Okay? Resting potential become more negative in the atrium. So in the sinus node, the right vagus go to the node, sinoatrial node. The left vagus go to the atrioventricular node. And this effect determine a more negative and slow down the potential. People at physical decrease, more negative, automaticity decrease, heart rate decrease. This is called the negative chronotropic effect. At the sinus atrial node, the vagal effects are to reduce the if current, to reduce the calcium current, and to increase the potassium current. Negative inotropic effect in the atrium, especially in the atrium, because less calcium means less force of contraction. In the nodal cells, we know that the calcium initiate and propagate the action potential. And this is control action potential, contraction. Calcium channel to decrease. The polarization rate of the low response cell decrease. We are repeating just to remind you, because now we see the effect of sympathetic nerve and catecholamine on cardiac muscle. Release norepinephrine, epinephrine released from adrenal glands, and bind to beta-1 receptor on cardiac cell and increase the calcium channel permeability. And so it's also the transient calcium channel. So the prepotential becomes faster. As the automaticity rise, heart rate increase, this is a positive chronotropic action. And increase also the velocity of conduction. This is called positive dromotropic action. The velocity of, because increase the calcium entry, and so makes everything rapid and increase, of course, the inotropic action. Okay, this is the action potential normally. This is the action potential in the presence of sympathetic stimulation becomes faster. And this is the action potential in parasympathetic. This is the prepotential that slows down So, in summary, we have a sympathetic nerve that increases the rate of diastole depolarization and increase the cardiac rate at the sinusal atrial node. Increase the conduction at the atrioventricular node. Increase the strength of contraction in the atrial muscle, and increase the strength of contraction in the ventricle muscle, because the sympathetic nerve go to hold the organ, atrium and the ventricle. Parasympathetic nerve decrease the rate of diastole depolarization, decrease cardiac rate, decrease the conduction in the atrioventricular node, decrease the strength of contraction in atrial muscle. No significant effect on ventricular for anatomical reasons. They don't reach so much the ventricle, just few fibers go on the ventricles. So, why we should know the channels involved in this process? Because we have the drugs. Class 1 antiarrhythmic drugs that block the sodium current. These are the anesthetic that the dentist uses. You don't feel pain, because we say that the sodium current in the nerve is similar to the sodium current in the heart. If you use a little bit of this, is an antiarrhythmic. If you use a lot, you kill the person. The dentist they use a lot, but just in the local anesthetic. A lot for the local is not a lot for the body. Then we have a class 3 amiodarone. They act prolonging the action potential because it's inhibiting the potassium channel. And the class 4 are antagonists of calcium channels, like verapamil, like diltiazem that we mentioned. And this is class 1, class 2. Class 2 are beta blockers. Beta blockers block the beta 1, propanolol, esmolol, phimolol, propanolol. They reduce the excitability of the cells. And this is just to mention some of this drug. This is pharmacology. The pharmacologist explained better than me this. Please don't use this drug just because I told it. And now we know how the inputs generate, diffuse, and we will use this to define the term dipole, describe the characteristics, define a vector, blah, blah, blah. These are concepts that will useful for us to understand the electrocardiogram. And now we will describe the lattice, but in the afternoon. Read these objectives, so you will know some terminology. And if you want to ask me something when I will come back, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. Do you realize this? I'm here for you. When Professor Barberini called me and said, "Oh, we have 8 nice guys, boys and girls that are waiting for you," and said they were welcome. Are they Italians? They say yes. Oh, I will come. But there is also a guy from Africa. That's an additional reason to come for me. I love both Italy and Africa.
Oh, nice. I love Italy.
Really, I love my students. I love my students. Without students, my life is miserable. So please ask me everything you want. Ok? Buon appetito.
Grazie. Posso chiedere una cosa veloce? Ma qua mi dice praticamente che per l'articolo C
Posso prendere anche se il compito il compito. Hanno deciso di rifarlo perché è troppo lungo e c'è il cardiovascolare che è fatto con i piedi.
No, volevo sapere solo perché, cioè, quando dice storie particolari, è un po' diverso dalle
Guarda, questo.
Ah, non sono queste è quella normale.
Se vuoi ti spiego anche perché è grande della...
La pasta.
Perché qua non c'è la bambina.
Allora la sera mangio te.
Ah, mette vicino, è tipo questo meno.
No, è così,
E questa no, cioè ce l'hanno meno pronunciate. È meno pronunciata nell'exercizio.
No, questa è la fine.
No, lo so, dice.
Questa è con la...
È solo quindi il ventricolo che si contrae e si
C'è un po' una cellulina che fa prima degli avvenimenti del seno e popolarizza il ventricolo. Adesso guarda che sono delle scuole di gli altri. No, poi parliamo perché è sottile, la sommatoria è tale per cui si può trascurare. Trascuriamo quindi i nostri ragionamenti, ma sì, quindi ci annullano
She's like Barbie, you know. She's like a doll.
Invece, quando,
Ah, è pieno, cioè.
You tell her
quando
something,
origina, per esempio, dalla parete del computer che si trova tutto da sinistra a
gets
destra,
emotional.
e quindi
Like,
non
you know,
ha nulla che ti racconta, allora fa un potenziale più
Più
grande.
grande, ok, ok. Quindi, ok,
Questo
noi stiamo
è
capendo che risulta più grande degli altri.
you go to the
Questo
elevator and
il
you're like,
QRS dell'extrasistem
È più alto.
può
you're
essere,
everywhere.
se origina la decisione in modo di detto, più alto delle. Invece quelle dell'extrasistole atriale, non so se ce ne sono qui,
But the life
No, non penso.
generalmente non è diversa perché poi segue le stesse linee.
shepherd is good, so with the wife. It's a dangerous.
Buon appetito.
Grazie.
Sì, fino alla 16 hanno fermato.
I realize she's crazy and
Non so, tipo il capo di regista, non so, si è lamentato perché tipo lei guadagnava tipo, c'è da 14, c'è da 16 anni, è sempre lei a fare.
Vabbè, se gli togli i meriti,
Secondo me questa è una cosa bella, ci sono andata avanti, grazie comunque.
quindi che Grey's Anatomy ora va avanti grazie a lei, perché dopo lei stavo cognando.
Isabella, have you watched
Have you quanto è stato bello?
have you
Quanto è
watched
stato bello?
Chicago Med?
Ha fatto tipo un expelliarme.
Chicago Med is, what do you call it? If you want to become a surgeon, I think it's better you watch Chicago Med. But if you want to know the life of a doctor,